Hello, viewers, and welcome to Novus Talks with me, your host, Novus Corvius. I know I've already made a few videos on this topic already. I've done a whole tribute video, and I've done like 3 or 4 videos saying about how much Metroid Dread means to me and my history with this on YouTube as making content for it and all this sort of thing. And you can tell by my reactions and the different videos and theories I did leading up to release how invested I was into the existence of Metroid Dread, basically. But given that the Game Awards just happened, and given that Metroid Dread won an award, that we got Metroid music, and that it doesn't seem like Metroid Dread DLC is on the cards, at least anytime soon, it seems like this really is the end of the journey, for the time being at least, for Metroid Dread. And so I do want to make this sort of final video about the whole experience, everything that led to this moment for me personally right now with Metroid Dread. I know I've done my final thoughts on the game. I've done like 2 reviews on it. So there's not much to actually say about the game itself that I haven't said already, but just the journey, because man, it really was something. As I've said many times on my original channel, Novus Corvius, I started talking about Metroid in 2014. Metroid Dread was one of those topics that always came up alongside Metroid Prime 4 about, the future of the series. Are we going to see a new game announced anytime soon? Will it be one of these 2 games? Are both of them possible, or could we only just see one of them? And for a time, I believed it was going to be one or the other, but ironically and thankfully, now we are getting both of them. But going back then, theorizing on, what the future could hold, that, every Nintendo Direct, every E3, that, hey, this is the year, this is where we see Metroid Dread or Metroid Prime 4. And then E3 2015 happened and we got a new Metroid game. It was Metroid Prime Federation Force, which I was excited for, but most people unfortunately were not, because of it being a spin-off after such a long drought. But it was a weird feeling in a way, because it was a new Metroid experience, but it wasn't this Metroid experience. It wasn't the one that was my only gripe with that announcement, actually, was that it wasn't the major Metroid announcement. I was happy to see it existed, but it wasn't Metroid Dread or Prime 4. Those 2 games became very symbolic in my mind of Nintendo listening to the fans, giving us what we want, and where Metroid stands in terms of its future and what the future should be for the franchise. But the game came out, I liked it, most people didn't. The game is I think the worst selling Nintendo game of all time, which is unfortunately. But its story did set up a cliffhanger for Metroid Prime 4, which Tanabe later confirmed. And then we go to E3 2017, a year after Federation Force comes out. And first of all, the way I saw it is I saw the announcement of Samus Returns first, because I didn't watch the actual show. I just watched the announcements afterwards. But I remember, all the rumors saying that there was going to be Metroid Prime 4. But then I look at E3 and we get a new Metroid game already for the 3DS, but it's a 2D Metroid game, but it's a remake of Metroid 2, and a bad one at that. It was a game that, even in my original reaction, I was very disappointed. I thought it looked terrible, rubbish. I was very disappointed with it. But then I found out shortly afterwards that Prime 4 did get announced, much to my shock, with that 20-second teaser of the number 4. And that signaled, okay, the fans are finally getting what they want. And Samus Returns came out that year, and I really did not like that game in the slightest. I had a lot of issues with it, and I was very fed up after playing it. And then there was the lack of information around Prime 4, and then the delay. And then we had nothing. We presumed we weren't going to hear about Metroid for another 3 years. And we go into 2020 then, and we get this tease of Samus and Paper Mario, and it really starts teasing the future for what Metroid could be. And obviously Samus Returns is Chozo Memories, but we were back in a drought. Metroid Prime 4 was a while off, and we didn't know if a 2D game would come out before or after Prime 4. I believed after, because I believed all of their focus would be on Prime 4. So it felt like we were in another drought once again, and I just remember being sort of tired with the franchise, because in my mind this game still represented hope because of the tease at the end of Samus Returns and the delay of Prime 4, and just the fact that they could finally move the Metroid story forward. And then we kept getting nothing with each E3, with each Nintendo Direct, each Game Awards. Nothing was there. Until the 18th of June 2021, we get a new Metroid game. It's a 2D Metroid game, and it's Metroid 5, and it's called Metroid Dread. That moment was, words don't really describe it for me, what that really felt like. It was disbelief. It was utter shocked. I was knocked into a completely different dimension, it felt like. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe that I had heard Nintendo utter the words Metroid Dread. That just didn't seem real. In the same way that in 2017, when Reggie mentioned Metroid Prime 4, when he said that name, that also didn't feel real. And it was the same feeling I had here. But the fact that we were finally getting this game, and it was what was going to bring the franchise back. It was the first game after like a 4-year drought. And it was the exact same game they were making all those years ago. And it was offering everything I wanted as a Metroid fan. You know, more of an emphasis on story, sort of more character, sort of focus, new worlds, an all original soundtrack, new enemies. It offered all of that, and it succeeded in ways that I didn't even imagine it would. I finally got my hands on the game on October 8th. That was something else for me. That really was probably my favorite memory in gaming with this series anyway, and one of my favorite overall, because I was never more attached to anything in fiction than I was in that moment. I mean, yeah, I had obsessions in the past with, Transformers 5 and even with Star Wars Forbidden, all these other things, but what I felt with Metroid Dread was more than like all of that combined. It was like 10 times ahead of everything else. I was really into it. I was well over my head, full on throwing myself at this game. And to play it and have it be a masterpiece, and then have it sell marginally well so far, get nominated for the Game Awards, win one of those awards, and have Metroid music get announced at the show, with the promise as well, shortly after release, that more 2D Metroid games would come later down the road. For me, this moment is the equivalent of E3 2004 for most Nintendo fans, the reveal of Twilight Princess. That's what this is to me. This sort of thing I've been wanting for so long that just came out of nowhere and was just, in the blink of an eye, it was a real product. It was a real product that was going to release, that I was going to play and experience. And then it was just going to be a thing of the past. This game that I'd spent 8 years talking about on YouTube, theorizing as like the one game that should be, this and Prime 4 were like the two like only options where the franchise could go. And then to finally get it and then sort of bring closure to that journey and sort of open the floodgates for what else could be possible going forward. For the first time ever, for me doing YouTube, I'm at a point where if I consider or talk about the future of Metroid, it's not this game anymore. It's the future is more unknown. It doesn't seem as obvious as it was 6 months ago. This game is here, and it's the present, it's the past, but it's not the future anymore. And it's an incredible feeling that I genuinely never thought I would feel. After having Federation Force and Samus Returns, two games which weren't this game, but were still new games in a series that did their own thing, it seemed like, yeah, we would get new Metroid games, but they wouldn't be the Metroid game. Same with Prime 4 before it got announced. So to have this come along, it really was everything. It was what the franchise needed, just like we had said for all those years. We had all theorized and said, dozens of YouTubers have said multiple times over the years that, Metroid Dread is what the franchise needed. We needed a Metroid 5 because it would keep the story going, and it would bring back that cancelled game. It would get everyone hyped and involved, and it would push the series into new heights. And that's exactly what it did. We were right. All our hopes and wishes were not misplaced. They were correct for what we should hope and want for Metroid 5. For now, this is where the series is going to be left off for the time being. I never thought going into 2021, because this is the 35th anniversary of Metroid. For the 25th anniversary, we didn't get anything. For the 30th anniversary, we got Federation Force, but we didn't get any proper acknowledgement of the series outside of an Iwata Asks article. So for the 35th anniversary, to get a new game, to have its marketing constantly reference 35 years, for this game to be the game that everyone has wanted for so long, it is such a surreal feeling to be at a point where I can say Metroid is on steady ground. This franchise that seemed obscure and left in the dark might actually have a chance going forward. It's crazy, and I don't know what to make of myself. As I've said before, I will obviously continue to make Metroid content, to talk about Metroid games, but it is sort of sad in a way that conversation won't include Metroid 5 anymore. This is done. This has happened. It's in the past now. There's new and even more exciting things to look forward to. The conversation changes to something else. It's so bizarre to think that the game, the shining example of what the series needs going forward, and it's come out. So my brain is left with sort of confusion as to what's next. How do I even talk about Metroid anymore without having this in a conversation anymore? Man. It has been an incredible journey getting to this point. My tribute video I made was genuine from the bottom of my heart. My excitement about this whole journey, and my way of saying thank you, even though I know Nintendo won't see that video. But it was also a way for me to sort of consolidate the last 8 years of my life with this series into one 5-minute video. And to have that be representative of the great journey it took to get to this point. This is something I will look back on several years from now as one of the greatest experiences I've had with gaming. Not so much the game itself. The game itself is obviously great, but just the entire journey as well. Holy shit. I never thought we would be at this point so quickly. So quickly. It really is something remarkable, and I will forever be grateful for Nintendo for giving us Metroid Dread, for giving it the absolute best chance it deserves, for throwing their all at it, for ignoring the Zelda 35th anniversary in favor of this. That was unheard of. That was impossible to us 7 months ago, but it's true. that is exactly what happened. And I hope it's a sign of things to come for Nintendo as a whole. I hope it's a sign that Nintendo wants to focus on their forgotten IP, that it's symbolic of them wanting to bring back all those older games, diversifying their lineup over the next few years, and really making the Switch the golden library for Nintendo games. But we just have to wait and see. The fact that Advance Wars exists, it's certainly a step in the right direction also. Who knows what other games they have in development as well. And so with that, this is the closing of a chapter for me, the end of an 8-year-long wait for me. 8 years of being a fan of this franchise and this being the focus of the conversation. 8 years of just speculating on how Metroid Dread could be the future game, the very next game that gets announced and released. 8 years of just, waiting to react to material from this game. I am blown away. I can't add anything else to that. There's nothing else to say that I haven't said already, other than thank you to Nintendo for giving Metroid Dread a shot, for giving us this game that we first heard about 15 years ago, and for making it all that it could be, for making it the Metroid game. What a year. What a year. Who would have thought that Metroid's 35th anniversary would have happened with this? It really is incredible. And yeah, with that all said, that I guess is the final cap on this little chapter and roundup and summary, I guess, for this journey. I wanted to make this video as sort of like the final acknowledgement of where I've come as a YouTuber and as a fan, and my appreciation for this game and for Nintendo, and for my excitement for what could come in the future. And with that all said, thank you all for watching, and please subscribe. Novus Corvius out.